Coffee, like a lot of songs, started with the hook. Let me fix your coffee every morning. And I knew instantly that that could be an R&B song. It had all the components that I liked. And so it was interesting though as a writer, because as excited as I was when I started, I pretty quickly began to feel the desire to pass the baton to another writer, which has literally never happened before for me. I tend to be pretty self-sufficient with my ideas. I know where I want to go with them. But I got to verse 2, I started to try to write it, and I just began to long to have someone else's perspective in the song. And so I was scrolling through Spotify. Keep in mind, I've always wanted to collaborate with a hip-hop artist. And scrolling through Spotify, and I come up on a song that features Wes. And I was really blown away with his style. I loved his writing, I loved his voice, and it just had the perfect vibe for what I wanted with Coffee. And so we reach out to him. That's the beauty of making music in 2018, is you can collaborate from a distance. And he knocked out his part. It was amazing. I mean, he perfectly ran with the idea of the song and made it his own and brought his experience into it. You know, he really expanded on the idea of the song, which for me was, I wanted to write a love song that sort of juxtaposed these really grandiose ideas about love with also the really everyday thing.
Yeah, in Wes's verse, it just felt real fresh. It was like a cool perspective on the song that we hadn't felt yet, which sort of determined the production direction a little bit too.
Yeah, it really did. You know, it was interesting. I think around that time, I really started to want to lean into like a 2000s R&B vibe, which is funny. It's funny to think we're far enough along that like that's kind of throwback now, but it is. And so it was really interesting. I loved that era, and that's when I really started to listen to modern R&B. And so I never got to make a song like that because I was a kid when that was going on. But it was really fun to kind of lean into that influence because, again, it was so inspiring to me over the years. And I love where R&B is now too, so it was cool to kind of bring in some of those really modern aesthetics too.
One of my favorite parts about the creative process is pushing each other, and I feel like this is our third project to work on, and we're constantly pushing each other. One of my favorite memories from the song Coffee was the synth solo. Originally you were like, that's gonna be a guitar solo, Casey. Like, when we get there, I said, Sam, why don't you just take a stab at it, you know? And loaded in some synth patch, and man, you ripped it. And it was such a surprise to both of us. And I don't think you were initially convinced though that first take was the actual solo.
No, not at all. I mean, I remember stressing to the guitarists that we brought into sessions saying, you know, this is the demo, it's a placeholder. But, you know, I remember we would cue up the solo for them to take a pass, and they were always like, why would we change it? You know, this is as good as it is. So it's fun. I'm glad you pushed me, and that's why I think it's so good to collaborate with great producers and great musicians, because I don't think I would have seen anything special in it at the time, but now hearing it, it's raw and cool and perfectly in the vibe of the song, and one of my favorite kind of little moments on the record.